Alright, you know the drill. New patch, new character, so let's see where they've landed on the tier list. We are here, of course, because of March 7th, aka Evernight. What is she now? March 8th? She's March 9th now? Crazy. But she's a tier 0 in 2 different categories, okay? We're gonna get into it, but before we do, let's go ahead and go over maybe the biggest change that they have ever made to this tier list. It's at least one of the big ones. They're changing the criteria to include signatures for all of these characters. Okay, let's just read this out. Still, the biggest change we're making this update is a swap from strictly no signature tier list to one including them. Previously, characters were assessed with a limited to a standard S1 with a 5-star light cone, any S5 with a 4-star light cone, and Herta's S5, maybe Herta shop light cones, by the way, is what that means, with 5-star light cones. Under the new criteria, characters will still have access to the previously listed cones, but also any limited S1 5-star light cone as well. Here are the reasons why we're making the change. Nowadays, characters are designed with their signature light cones as a core component to their kit. Yes, this is known as the shilling that Hoyo has been doing, not just in Honkai Star Rail, but also in Zenless Zone Zero. Spoilers, they did the same change to the Zenless Zone Zero list as well, which actually changed their list slightly. But spoilers again, it didn't change the Honkai Star Rail list that much. We'll get into that in just a second here. This is especially true for the damage-based characters, meaning DPS characters, as far as like being reliant on their light cones. With many having no or incredibly limited alternatives, we've received feedback and agree that many players have evaluated their characters based on the power level with their signature light cones in mind, partly because of point 1, but also because more players own signatures compared to playing with characters at E0, S0 based on their data that they have here at Prydwen. The difficulty of the game continues to increase, favoring vertical investment compared to horizontal investment in the modern era. That is true. Modern players are moving firmly towards selecting their favorite characters and investing heavily into them longer compared to limited, like E0, S0, everything. And I think that's a fair change to make. The game's been out for over 2.5 years. It's going to be 3 years in April. Most players have a signature light cone of some kind at this point and probably move it around across their account, right? But as you can see, it hasn't actually caused any movement with any of the other characters on this list because the criteria allows for a bit of freedom with moving a signature around. For example, a standard banner character or a rank character, 4-star character, whatever you want to call it, giving them a signature of a different character is allowed with this type of criteria. And it doesn't seem like there's any character on this list so far that is so reliant on a light cone of some kind that it causes them to like fall down or move up on the list somewhere, which I think is a good thing. It just goes to show that, you know, maybe it is true that nothing is a must pull in this game, including light cones. Okay, now let's get into the main reason why we're all here. Evernight. March 9th? March 9th. That's what we're going to call her. And so Evernight here, we were all worried that she was going to basically be a shill character for Memo Sprite only team, right? And she kinda still is, but she's not as restricted as I think many of us were worried about. As you can see, she can be a main carry, DPS, and she doesn't have to be locked to a casterist team. We'll go into the teams in just a second here, but I just wanted to like show you real quick that she can basically be, yes, on the premium casterist team as we all expected, but she can function as a main DPS, right? And she can basically swap out casterist for a Tribi, a Cypher, a Runmei, some other supportive type of character, right? That hopefully is dealing you neutral buffs that aren't attack based because she's not an attack scaling character, so you're not going to want to put her with like a Robin or something like that. Now, she still is a shill character at the end of the day. She still is like the Memo Sprite queen, but thankfully there's at least another option, and she isn't locked to literally one singular team. This is kind of like the Aglaya situation all over again, but I'd say probably like worse, if you will, because Aglaya at least has, I think, more options on day 1 than we ended up having with March 7th. Now, maybe we're going to get other units coming in like 4.0 that even though they might be 4.0 kind of meta intended, they could still work with her, but they'd have to probably be like some crazy cracked support that could slot in for Tribi or like, you know, Remembrance Trailblazer or like a Cypher or something like that. Something like that, some crazy cracked support, or a Memo Sprite character, which I doubt we're going to get memo sprites in 4.0, so she is still a very locked-in character. However, as you can see, her performance is ridiculous. Obviously, the endgame right now is going to heavily cater to her. We'll see how things go long-term, but as of now, this could still be a very strong pickup for you. However, just be aware, you really do want to pay attention to what teams you have to see if she's even worth picking up. Now, we will go into her teams, the build, etc. in a sec here, but since we did get a peek at the teams, I wanted to go over the light cone situation first. So this is yet another unfortunate situation because Remembrance characters, there's not a whole lot of them, right? And she is a DPS Remembrance character, and Remembrance characters have been all sorts of different classes to this point, so there's not a lot of options for her. She has her signature, which is obviously going to be her best. You have Castoris's light cone, which is honestly not that far off from the Sig. We're talking about a difference of less than 2%. That's not that bad. If you have Castoris's signature and you, let's say, aren't going to run her on a Castoris team, or you have like a budget cone that you could throw on Castoris, whatever, you do have Castoris's light cone as an option there. Now, you obviously have Sweat Now, Cry Less. This is obviously an option as well with Fei Xiao working out on the light cone, even though she's a Hunt Path character, but, you know, that's it is what it is. This is like a 7.5 roughly increase to, let's say, using the baseline light cone, which is still Sweat Now, Cry Less, but at S1. This is technically better than using, let's say, Time Waits for No One as a literal stat stick. Okay, like none of this none of this stuff here does anything on her. You're literally using this cone for the stats because it has a really fat HP stat it can give her, and it's actually pretty decent if you have literally nothing else. You have the story's next page. Someone let me know if this is the battle pass cone or not, or if I'm just stupid and I haven't gotten this cone a lot. But to be honest with you, I think if you have no good options, you should just honestly look at the Sweat Now, Cry Less and maybe build it up to S5 at some point. It's not that bad. However, yeah, it is probably going to be a little bit of a FOMO moment not having one of these two light cones right here. However, I have a feeling she's going to be so strong, you're going to be just fine using this 4-star cone. Not going to lie though, if you're sweaty, you're probably going to want one of those signature cones. Now let's get into the Relic situation here. This is a new set, World Remaking Deliverer. This is just going to be a good set for Honkai Star Rail overall because the 2-piece gives you 8% crit rate, so another crit option there. Now the 4-piece bonus, after the wearer uses basic attack or skill, if the wearer's memo sprite is on the field, it increases the max HP of the wearer and their memo sprite by 24%, and increases all allies' damage by 15% until the wearer's next basic attack or skill. So obviously the 4-piece doesn't work on every character, it works great on her though. But let's go ahead and talk about the 2-piece option here. Obviously, World Remaking Deliverer is going to be a great option. And you also have Scholar of Lost Erudition for the crit, Longevous Disciple for HP, or Hunter of Glacial Forest for the crit damage bonus that it gives you upon a trigger. However, all of these are pretty good options. The 2-piece situation is pretty good. Just be aware, it is nearly a 9% fall off. That is pretty big for her situation. If you look, for example, at S1 of the 4-star Sweat Now, Cry Less cone, taking it all the way to S5 gives you less than that, for example. So be aware that substats are far more important than anything. So if you have Omega cracked substats on your old gear, run that for your day 1, because nobody is going to have an amazing set of World Remaking Deliverer literally the moment she releases, because the set hasn't been out for long enough for you to farm it yet. So be aware of that, okay? Honestly, the 2-piece is going to be the best option for you day 1, and over time, World Remaking Deliverer is going to be better for you as you acquire better and better substats on your gear. But now let's move on to the planetary sets here. So Bone Collecting Serene... I've never... That's a word? Sure, why not? Anyways, it increases the wearer's max HP by 12%. When the wearer's max HP is 5,000 or higher, it increases the wearer's and their memo sprite crit damage by 28%. This is the one you're going to want to go for because let's be honest here, this can go on so many of the Amphorius characters and more than just Amphorius characters. If they scale on HP, this is just good. Arcadia of Woven Dreams, while it is a good set, while it is actually very, very comparable to her best option. This, unfortunately, is a very limited bonus, and so this is not the best domain to farm for your account if you don't have characters that could utilize this. So just keep that in mind. This is a good set, okay, but I think the best bang for your buck in terms of like your stamina usage is definitely going to be used in this domain right here for your account as a whole. As far as the main stats and the substats are concerned, just a disclaimer, I guess, she gives herself so much crit rate in her own kit that you basically don't need to even worry about running a crit rate body at all. Just run a crit damage body, get enough, you know, substat rolls into crit rate, get enough stuff off of like passives and things like that from her gear in order to get her to 100 crit rate or close to it in combat, which means that like you would only need 65% before you go into combat in order to be able to get all of it. So that is a pretty low bar. Try to get that through your substats, etc., and that way you can dump everything else into crit damage. Now, as far as the feat are concerned, give her an HP boot in most cases. If you really know what you're doing with speed tuning, etc., speed tuning is still fine, but just be aware that, you know, most people are going to probably just want to run an HP boot on her. She does want to scale off of HP, so this is good for her. Now, as far as the planar is concerned, focus on your substats. That's what will decide which one you want to use, right? Whether it's ice damage or whether it's HP. So just keep that in mind. Substats, they're far more important. Link rope, go with HP % in most cases. As far as some recommended in-game stats here, they're recommending you go for like 7,000 plus. And obviously we mentioned the crit rate situation earlier. You want to get your crit damage at 160 or above, because she has a trace buff as well. So this is 160 or above before the trace buff. Speed at 199 plus. She has a base speed is fine because she has literally this crazy speed buff that she gives herself. Now, since we talked about the team so much earlier, we're just going to kind of glance over it for the most part here. We have the premium Casteress team, right? Evernight, Casteress, Tribby, or the Remembrance Trailblazer. Prioritize Tribby if you can. And then, of course, Hyacine. Hyacine is going to be the support for any of the Evernight teams because she has the sustainability and she has the Memo Sprite. Evernight DPS team, right? That's the Evernight DPS. That's the Remembrance Trailblazer amplifier. You have another amplifier / DPS in Tribby or in Cypher. Ron May is just an amp, but try to prioritize Tribby if you can. If you have a really good like Cypher and you really know what you're doing with Cypher, this is also a really strong option. Ron May is still good too if you want it to be kind of just more chill, easy. You know, everybody knows how good Ron May is. She just has to sit there, look pretty, and let everybody do damage. And then you have Hyacine, you have Gallagher, and you have Huohuo. Of course, prioritize Hyacine because she has a Memo Sprite. These other two don't. And Memo Sprite synergy is very, very important with Evernight if you can get it, which is why it's kind of a bummer she's kind of locked to Memo Sprite so much, because there just isn't a lot of options in the game. So, March 9th, the coming of Evernight is an incredibly strong character, but she's also incredibly restrictive, okay? Like, you might look at this and be like, oh my gosh, look at this. She's oh my god, a tier 0 support DPS and a tier 0 DPS. Wow, the versatility here, the variety, bro. She is only here because of one team. And there is like almost no variation to that team at all. This DPS slot, same thing. One team with a little bit more variation, but again, not a whole lot, right? This is an incredibly niche character, however, incredibly strong. If you can build her and you do want to pull her, don't feel bad for doing so, okay? But if you're new to the game or if you don't have her teammates, this might be like a skip potentially, right? Unless you're willing to build those those teams over time. Just be aware, when we go to 4.0, we're probably not going to see any Memo Sprites. I don't know that for a fact. I don't think anyone does except the devs. But dude, like, even early information does not say Memo Sprites are coming. So just be aware you're looking at reruns or already having the team. This, again, don't get it twisted. This is an incredibly strong character. This is an incredibly strong unit. But I want people to be aware, if you don't already have what she needs, it's just not the same character at the end of the day. So just be aware of that, okay? Let me know if you're pulling this character. Let me know if you're excited for what's coming in the future. And let me know if you're saving for 4.0, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.